Welcome back to Getting to Green. My name is Kevin. Today I want to talk to you about data providers. This is going to be a fun one. Pretty much what data providers are is, let's say you're starting to test and you're constantly writing the same test over and over again. You're changing out one or two things, these minor little variables, but you're constantly rewriting the same test. Well, there's got to be a better way, right? Everybody keeps trying to drill into our heads, is don't repeat yourself, don't repeat yourself, don't repeat, and they just keep repeating, don't repeat yourself, right? Well, we want to listen to that. So the best way to do that is by writing something that can take a variable and use it the way that we want it to, right? So like starting to extract all of our tests into smaller little chunks that we can reuse a single test runner, right? So that's what data providers do for us. And they're amazingly fun to work with. I tried looking this up in other places. Obviously we're going to start talking about Vitest here. It's essentially Jest, so it works with Jest. Mocha doesn't really have one built in, but it's easy enough to write it. You would wind up using pretty much your array functions for that. PHP also has it. This is where I actually started working with data providers, and I'm going to show you that as well. And I'm sure that any test runner that's worth its salt is going to have something there. I tried looking up a few of them. They kind of name them differently here and there. I like the name Data Provider. It's probably just because I started with it. That's what PHPUnit calls it, but it doesn't really matter. I call it data sets as well when I'm in JavaScript because it's less to write, and provider is hard to spell sometimes. So let's jump into it. So here's my Vitest. This is something in Stack Blitz. I'm going to link this down in the description so you guys can take a look at this and play around with it all you want. You can test it out yourself. So here we have a couple of tests, right? And if you look at the actual rules here, this is what we're going to be testing, this max length rule. This is really for like if you have an input field, right? So maybe a name or whatever your input you want it to be, and you want it to only be so long. You don't want to have 100 characters in there. You want it to be a max of whatever you decide it to be. So it'll validate that and check it for you. And what this is doing, really, I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's a function that returns another function. So what that means is we can set this up with our own variables, and then we can actually use it. So what this is returning, this is all TypeScript, and this is what it's saying, that the length, it accepts a number, and there's an optional message that you can pass in that's here. Pretty much you can give it your own custom message for this, or use the default one, so we offer that as well. And then we have our value, which is going to be a string. Your inputs are always going to be a string. That's just how it goes. And what we're going to return with this, that's what this is. It's either going to be true or false, or a string. And really, it's only going to return true or our validation error, right? So it's really only true and some kind of string saying your error. So to test this, let's jump in over here and let's take a look. So you can see we have a big describe block. We're just going through that rule, the max length rule, and we have all these things. And we can see that the rule, we set up the rule itself here. We're importing rules, and we have we're setting it up to have a max of 3, and we're giving it a custom message, and we're expecting this rule, it runs this, and it's going to be equal to the fail message because testing is longer than 3 characters long. So then you can continue on here. I have these TS expect errors here as well because it's going to, we're actually trying to test errors, and this is really for us as we're using this. If we decide to throw in a string by accident when we're setting it up, I want TypeScript to yell at us. If we didn't have this here, it'll tell us that there's an error here. The argument is a type string, and it's supposed to be a number. So that's the only reason why this is here. It's just for testing, and sometimes when you're actually testing things, you don't want to allow for those things within the actual code, just so you get rid of that little squiggly line. You want it to be very obvious. TypeScript, there's going to be an error here. Leave me alone. And it's supposed to, the accepted number should only be a number. That's a little note, right? Again, testing is longer than 3, and this we're testing that default message, right? And we're also, well, this is yeah, that's actually wrong. This should be it cannot have a string. This should not be that. Weird. Anyways, continuing on. We're going to also have, you know, the max length here. This is that default message. This is what I thought we were looking at. And we also have, you know, the happy path, which it passes when you have a max length of 10 and you have up to 10, you know, whatever that is, right? And we want it to equal true. So we could run this and we see that we have all of these nice little things here. Let's see if we can quit this, and we'll do yarn Vitest UI. I think that's, well, let's look at the package. I think it's something like that. Test UI. Test UI. This should open a panel to the side for us. Yes, it does. So it'll run all of our tests for us, and we have 4 passing. We could break it down. We have all of our tests here, right? So it fails, blah, 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 blah. But that's great. But if we go back to our test, you could see easily, you know, we're doing the same thing over and over again. We're expecting something, we're setting up the rule, and we're, you know, asserting that it equals whatever we're expecting. So if we wanted to rewrite this, we certainly can. So if we go down here and we create a describe, and we're just going to have it be the same thing, the rule max length, right? And we'll just make a note here that this is the data sets. All right, so what we can do is we could create, let me look at my other screen here, because brain no works so good when on camera. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to set up a const here, and this is going to be our data set. All right, you can name it anything you want, doesn't matter. But this is going to be an array, and we're just going to make this also an array of arrays. And what the first thing we want to do is our accepted value. What I like to do is up here, I like to make a little note to kind of show what I'm doing. And this is going to be our accepted. This is going to be the value that we pass in, what we expect back, and even our custom message, right? So that's what this is going to be. So we can have, we're going to say we accept of 3, that's the value that we want. The value that we're going to try, we're going to try invalid. That's longer than 3. And we're going to expect a, let's do our same thing up here, right? Our custom message. So custom message, and we have to pass that in as well. So custom message, right? And that's great. We want to then have it test.each. So this is something that's provided with Vitest, when Jest, Mocha, Chai. I think they have a package that you could pull in to offer this, but it's not something out of the box, or at least I don't remember it being. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say for each of the data set, we want to run a function here. And I'm just going to indent this. It's going to look kind of weird, but we want the test here. So testing, the max rule, and we can pass in little string stuff here. So input. So this is the %. This is going to be the first thing here. Input. And then put this, do in quotations. Why can't I find this button? There it is. Returns, and then %s. Oh, there you go. So that's what the test will look like. You can see here. That's what we're trying to see. Max rule 3, input of invalid, returns, and then custom message, right? So that's kind of what we set up here, which is cool. And then we're just going to say down here, this is the accepted value, the expected, and the message, right? And this is going to be a function. Open that up, and then the const rule equals rules dot max length rule, and we're going to say we're going to pass in the accepted and the message if there is one, right? And then we're going to expect our rule with value in it to.be equal, and then whatever we expect, right? And look at that, it's already passing. So this is all set up. See, we have a little squiggly line here. It's saying that we're passing in kind of weird things, and there's accepted here. So what we could write is with the TypeScript stuff, at ts expect error, right? And then give it something. Accept should be a number. We're good developers. And then this one, so let's add another one because we're good. ts expect error and value should also be a number. All right. So there we go. This is all passing. We're doing great. So why is this a little bit better? Because we could do the same thing that we have up here. We have have a string of 3 and testing and all this good stuff. So we could actually make that exactly right here. Oh, I don't have Vim. Copy, paste. There we go. Gotta add our little commas here. So this one should be a string, and this one is going to fail. And we can look over here, invalid. Expected max length must be a number, right? So we're going to actually get rid of this there, because we don't care about it. And we're expecting, let's see, what was that I wanted? Try and grab this out of there. It's kind of hard with all this, but copy that. This will go right here. And passing again. So we are testing that this needs to be a number. Yeah, that's correct up here. Yeah, max length must be a number. I was right before. I knew I was right. I just couldn't figure it out. Copy, paste. And let's see, the third one, we have 3 again. And we're going to test that default one. So 3, we can keep invalid. And this is going to fail because we're not passing in a custom message. And it should be, let's pull this over. Field must not exceed 3 characters. So pass that in there. And we're back to green. And I think we just have one more. And that's when we have a happy path, right? Copy, paste. I'll give this some arbitrary number of 10. I'll just say that this one is working. And for the expected, we expect it to be true. We expect that to pass. And that's it. So you can see this is way easier to consume and add to and create more tests in the future instead of this constantly repeating yourself. And this just gets out of control really fast. So this to me is much nicer. There are other ways that you could do this, and we're actually going to take a look at them in here. So if let's do this, and I don't need this anymore. But you can see, again at the top, we have everything running here. Same exact thing. This is, so we could do it as a object, so you can actually give it the names, and you could just structure them. I'll show you that down here because it's a little bit more. This is exactly what we just did. And this is the data set, just like up there with the .each and everything, but it is an object. So you can pass it the name, and give it all this stuff. And it's nice, it's a little bit more, it's bigger, right? So it doesn't hurt. You could see easily, okay, we're testing this, we're accepting that. To me, it reads easier than this, which is kind of all over the place. You have your commas in weird spots. It's kind of ugly, But this works, right? And you have everything down here, the same exact thing you were doing up there, and you're just destructuring your object, right? Because you're getting an array and you're getting an object, so you're going to destructure it and then pass it in where you need it to pass in. Another way you could do it is you could do these. This is a really cool way, I think. But again, it's like an interesting way to do stuff. You have to wrap them in these curly braces, but it's kind of cool. You know, you got your accepted, your value, or accepted, value, expected, and your message. Just make sure, like, if this was undefined, you can't just cut these out because it'll just jump to the next one and think this is your message. So just be careful. It doesn't really care about your line breaks. It just knows that these are what you need. So this one, I think this one's the nicest looking personally, but it's just, this part's hard. This isn't an open, where am I? It's not an open parenthesis. It's just you start right on it with your tags, right? And then you open up your function and you could test here. And again, you could do what we did up there, except you can pass in the actual names here, which is really cool. I think this reads the best. It's the easiest to kind of come into this and read it. If you were brand new to the testing framework or the project or anything, and you came in here and you're like, all right, test each. Oh, okay. That's cool. And you notice that this, you could probably pull this out. You know what? Let's actually try this. I want to try this too. So instead of this, test. We're going to test this. And so this one is this test now. We have an only on the very top. Get rid of that. And I come down here, and I only care about this one. So dot only, right? So all those tests are passing. And it's all funny looking because we broke everything. So if we take all this, cut that out, and we make a const data set equals this. Let's see, can we do data set? Does this work? No, it does not work. It gets cases everything is not a function. Yeah, so it's kind of like this weird. Let's see if we can get it to work though. Maybe, what happens if you just give it a space? Anything? What if you did that? No. Doesn't seem like that. What if we did something like this? No. All right, so I guess you can't do it that way. It has to be how we had it before, where it was just this. Copy that and boom. And get rid of this. Is this right now? Yep, there you go. So that is how this works, which is cool. I think it looks, honestly, really nice, as long as you're not small. You break it up like this, it gets ugly real quick, but if you keep it nice and open, this should look really nice for you. And going back to what I was talking about before, if you don't have the option of doing a test.each, it's still JavaScript, right? So you can do your dataset.forEach. You're going to have your function here, which again, you're doing your object destructuring, and then you just put it in a regular test. This is your test that you say, the name that we tested it, and then you just do the regular test, right? This still runs. So this is what I do if I'm in a Mocha project and I don't have that option. So those are all of our little data sets, right? Now, if we go to, it's going to let me go here, PHP, we have that same option. We have, let's say we're doing something with a phone number, right? So this is just a class that I had wrote for this project. It formats a phone number, right? So we want to test all this, and you can see it gets really, really, you start doing all these, all right? Here's your number, here's your phone number with the formatted version. You're testing it and against the formation, right? So you can see some of these have two assertions. We're kind of double checking in some of them, right? But you're just repeating yourself. Look at that. It's the same exact thing. So this gets really kind of annoying as well. But we can I'm just going to copy this out of here, copy this, and put this back in here. Now we have something called provider. So this is how PHP does it, PHPUnit. You have in your doc blocks your provider, right? So these ones have the @test, but this is just the provider. And all this is returning is an array of arrays, just like we started off with the Vitest. So we have our format, our value, which is phone, and what we expect out of it. This is all the same stuff. And then down here, we have, this is our test. So we have that notation, and we have an @DataProvider, and we're giving it the name right here. All right? So that's just telling PHPUnit what we're trying to look for. And then we break it up right here. These are the values that we're passing in. That's these. Format, value, expected. And here's our formatter, and this is how we set this up. If I run this, it runs all those tests. You can see I have 7 different tests running. They all pass. Everything's working. If I give it something other than a passing one, right? Do that and run that again. See, we have a failure, and it's only passing that in because that's what we said. So that's really everything you need to know about data providers. And if I could figure out where my screen is, here, boom, that's it. So I hope you learned something. I hope you start using data providers and see what amazing stuff you could do with these. I personally love them. When I found out I could do this, absolute game changer. So if you liked this, if you learned anything, please leave a like, leave a comment if anything was confusing, or if you have any questions, and give us do a little subscribe, you know? We're going to be doing some stuff like this in the future as well, so come along for the ride. All right, thanks for watching. Cheers.